Well, good morning, everybody. It's a wonderful day in the neighborhood, April 25th. And it's the year of manifestation. And we have three great themes for today. God is not a failure, treatment prayer works, and embody with faith of God. But before we get to those themes, I want to welcome our visitors and any guests and newcomers that we have. And if you are here as a newcomer, we welcome you and hope you come back again, because this is a lovely community who communicates straight from the heart. And I like that about the Positive Living Center and why I keep coming back week after week. And so settle back, take a deep breath, take a last sip of coffee or a drink of water, and just settle into that space within, the God spark within your heart, as we listen to some of the music of John Lalonde. These moments of silence are precious. A moment of meditation to listen to the God spark within, to listen to the voice within each moment, to make life a meditation. Remember that as you walk out today into the world each moment, to make each moment a meditation. And know that as you walk, you are God in action, with you, for you, and as you. Allow that now. So be it. And so we let it be so. And so it is. And now we ask Joe Bull to enlighten us with some spiritual thought today.
Good morning. Thank you, Missy. Good morning, everybody. This 5 minutes worth of talk is difficult to fill in all of the things I really want to say. So I focus mostly on God is not a failure. First of all, we know through science that many philosophers that God itself is the whole perfection of being. The Christian theology has said that God is the unmoved mover, the first cause, the necessary being, the great being, and the grand designer. God has demonstrated through me personally that God is not a failure. I have failed God over the years in my younger days, and I used to carry my old baggage of failed incidents with me so I would not forget that and make the same mistake again. But God was always waiting for me to forgive myself and let go of past mistakes. When I release and let go of past mistakes, I have immediately sought out God for inspiration, for forgiveness, direction, even for love. I never connected God with love as a young man. I just didn't. I only thought of asking for forgiveness, asking for direction and the guidance. This was in a time of my young adult life that I did seek these things out through God. I saw God as this all-knower, as the one to silently communicate with through prayer. Remember those days? Wherever you went, you had to get someplace quiet and silent so no one would see you praying, because it was a very private kind of a feel to it. That's how I was raised in the church I was raised in. But I really wasn't sure how I could get back in good graces with God. In my times of troubled feelings, feeling lost or uncertain as to what to do, I just felt pretty much on my own. I would ask another person what they would do, and the more people I asked, the more different answers I would get. I did think of going to a minister or a priest for answers, but I was taught that a real man figures things out for themselves. Weakness was frowned upon by the other men that I was seeking help from, even at church. I was separated from my first wife and considered a failure for not staying in the marriage. I had a lot of people that felt like turned their back on me and wanted nothing to do with me. Needless to say, I listened to the wrong people who told me I have angered God. So I knew, or felt I knew, that I had failed God again. So what do I do now? I wept privately, asking for forgiveness from God once again. I was in financial ruins after the divorce settlement. I got my house back after paying my ex-wife half the equity in it, but I was now over 2 months behind in payments to the bank. I decided to ask my father for a loan for the money to get caught up. He and I were not very close in those days, but I knew he had the money and it wouldn't hurt him to ask for that. And of course, he gave me the money, and I told him I would pay him back what I could each month, and it was fine with him. I hadn't even bothered to talk with God about that, since I was sure God was still angry with me. I got caught up on the payments, and yet I worried about paying my dad back. It's like one worry after another, you know? At that time, I prayed to God, asking for mercy, for guidance, and for direction. I asked mainly for money, abundance. The very next day in my mailbox was a tax return check. I'd forgotten all about that. I just sat down and said, thank you, God. Thank you, God. I knew that's where it came from. Had to have been. It was at that moment that I believed God was there for me, the first time in my life. I was the failure surrounding my human circumstances. God did not abandon me nor fail me. I had abandoned God. When I realized that God was for me, that God did not toss me aside, just as God holds nothing against anyone or anything. I started talking with God daily, seeking answers for everything. I did not share my rediscovery relationship with God. I told no one. Luana and I were good friends, yet I didn't share that with her either. I was just so happy to be reunited with God. Then Luana and I became very good friends, and we both started dating and decided to get married in 1983. We talked about desire to go to the same teachings church together. Thus, we discovered Science of Mind, and the rest is history. God forsakes no one, not even the most mixed up human being out there. I was lost, but now I'm found. And so it is. Thank you.
And so it is. So it is. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's I like that because it was like our own, I think we can all relate to that, our own journey. And now the music of John Balan and Joe Nelson.
Yes, thank you, and good morning again. Good morning, Joe. Joe and I are going to, with the limitations of Zoom, where you really can't do much together, we're going to do a call and response, or as some call it, taking turns.
Yeah, this is a experiment, and there's a musical term called rubato that means varying the tempo for the sake of expression. In our case today, we're calling it Zoombato, because we can't play in sync. So this is kind of a free form thing here.
1, 2, 3. The end.
That was a John Lalonde composition, by the way, performed by the J&J Show.
Thanks.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That was nice. I haven't heard call and response with instruments before. It's always been with voice. So that was nice. Thank you. And now for our wonderful speaker for today, the Reverend Jenny Evans.
There, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I was trying to hit the button and I'm having issues. I did an animal report airport the other day and I lost it. It got corrupted somehow and I had to start all over. So I've been having a few issues the last few days. I'm like, well, I don't know if Mercury's in retrograde, but maybe my own personal Mercury's in retrograde. I'm not sure. The other day I was watching, I know better to do this, but I was watching several news bits about others destroying parts of the earth, nature, and ecosystems. And you guys may have heard that those 55-gallon drums at the bottom of LA Harbor that are leaking DDT, that sort of thing. And I sat here shaking my head and silently cussing them out and giving them derogatory names. But I had an opportunity of hearing myself put my belief system into practice. And I said, why is this happening for me? Because if there is only God and that God is in me, acting through me, is me, then I have to accept responsibility to some degree for that. But I sat here feeling very powerless and frightened about what all that meant. And so I went digging in my Science of Mind textbook to work on this talk, but also this particular quote of Emerson hit home in ways that I will carry with me every day now from now on, as we watch the great universe with all of the solutions that it has in its great mind, that there are no problems that cannot be solved. And so Ernest Holmes said, to correct all the evils of the world would be to have positive faith. Faith rightly placed, a faith that lays hold of the integrity of the universe, the beneficence of God, and the unity of all life. And there was, see, that's the thing in this construct of consciousness that we share as global and universal citizens. For me, my advice to myself in those kinds of situations is to stretch to the spirit within me, who knows all the solutions. As Einstein told us, we cannot solve the problems we've caused with the same consciousness that created them to begin with. So when I was thinking about the phrase, God is not a failure, at first it sort of tripped me, and I didn't even see the word not in the sentence, because I've never seen the words God and failure in the same sentence. And so it threw me for a loop. And I had, it took me back to a time when I went to an astrology conference in Denver about 20 years ago. And there was a talk being given by Jeffrey Wolf Green, who at the time I was studying evolutionary astrology. And that was the first time I had ever heard that God was not perfect in a sentence. And I have to say, it was pretty jolting. A lot of people absolutely came off their seats. I have to admit that my mouth hit the floor. But he said that the reason God is not perfect is because it is evolving. And so that caused me to think about what that meant. And it helped me to remember that Emerson in one of his essays talked about the perfection of the rose. And the quote says, "The roses under my window make no reference to former roses or better ones. They are what they are. They exist with God today. There is no time to them. There is simply the rose. It is perfect in every moment of its existence." And as I was meditating this morning, getting ready to join you guys, it occurred to me that the energy of God, that it is like a wave that comes into shore and backs out and goes back out and gains its energy again and comes back in. And perhaps that the glory of the transition from energy from the formless into the form is something that we don't really see with the consciousness we have because of the consciousness we have. And so perhaps there's this beautiful dance of form to formless to form again that we don't recognize. And that's why the rose is perfect. That's why we are perfect in each one of our stages. But we have so many fears and nightmares about the truth that we really don't know what the consciousness we have just yet. I came across a wonderful quote the other day that said, 3 things cannot stay long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. And that was written by or spoken by Buddha. So it occurred to me that God is playing the long game. He cannot fail. It cannot fail because it cannot omit any part of itself, because it is all there is. It is the rose in all of its forms. I've been thinking a lot about how that plays out in other, we have a seedling type of stage. We have a young youth part of our, in humans, we have a youth, we have a teenager, we have a young adult, we have middle age, and we have old age. But each and every trees and animals and just about anything has that sort of range of stages that it goes through in the way that God has designed all of it. So I was thinking about my 22-month-old great nephew Carver, and he's beginning to move into what they call the terrible twos. He's a very, very bright young man, and he's already begun to say his no's and become a rebel. And so because we expect that stage, it's sort of a pleasure to watch him. However, I'm sure by the time he gets to be 13 or 14, it's going to, the parents are going to have to bring everything they can up to work with such a stage in their young lives. So it's interesting to watch the stages that we're all moving through, and that they're each one, and they're each perfect in their own place. We expect the sun to come up in the morning and in the afternoon due to the Earth's rotation. We anticipate the stages of the seasons because of the dates, because of the wobble of the Earth that we already know about. So we know that there's intelligent orchestration of this magnificent creation. So God cannot be a failure, but sometimes we think he is, because we've prayed and prayed and prayed, and yet our prayers go unanswered to the degree that we think they should be fulfilled. In my life, I've been guided to where I am now, and yet I don't realize that I'm still on the bus. And what I mean by that is that there's many buses that we ride, but we don't give a second thought to. So we're a blue speck orbiting in the cosmos, a sparkly speck at 448,000 miles per hour. I can't comprehend the distance in space. And then we inhale and exhale this invisible stuff we call air. Our lives, our very lives depend on it. And yet, excuse me, we breathe in and breathe out as we decide that God has failed us. Excuse me a sec. So in the changes that I have encountered this last year, I have a tickle. I came across a quote by Marilyn Monroe. I'm going to put it on my bathroom mirror. Sometimes good things fall apart, so better things can fall together. The things sometimes that we grieve that appear to be good, we don't have, they say hindsight is 20/20. We don't have the eyes to see why things have to fall into place the way that they do, because there is a grander scheme of things. And so we have to, that's one of the beauties of staying present in the now and trusting, which I have worked on my whole life, is this issue that God is trustworthy. So we exist in a river, an everlasting flow of energy that is all knowing, all seeing, everywhere present, that is within me, is me. I have to reach a little and allow it to work, regardless of my judgments, my ignorance, and my hubris. One of my favorite poems by Robert J. Burnett is like listening to one of my childhood hymns that I used to learn in Sunday school, which is very comforting to me. If I'm in a state of confusion, I'm in a dark place. And it goes, as children bring their broken toys with tears for us to mend, I brought my broken dreams to God because he was my friend. But instead of leaving him in peace to work alone, I hung around and tried to help with ways that were my own. At last, I snatched them back and cried, how could you be so slow? My child, he said, what could I do? You never did let go. So it's very uncomfortable for me, who's perhaps a recovering control freak, to not be able to know what my next now will look like. I just have to count my blessings, stay in gratitude, and stay present in the moment. So I run the risk of standing on a soapbox here, but I feel deeply grateful to share my error, my journey, my spiritual family with all of you. As I have moved away and I'm here in Tennessee, you know, again, hindsight is 2020, and you cannot know how special you are all to me. But it is time for us to embody our faith with God, making it form. Hebrews 11:1 says, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Our road is littered with brilliant hints and metaphors and miracles and sages and written works and epiphanies, and on it goes. But we still have a small unconscious self who is moving into the light that seems to stay determined to live in fear and separation. Ernest Holmes said that fear is nothing more than a negative use of faith, or faith is misplaced. So here we have a belief in two powers instead of one, once again. But when we embody the faith, we give it tangible form. The metaphor that came to mind is when I step outside in the morning and we feel that first warmth of the sun warming up our cheeks and making us feel warm all over. It is not something that we really can see on our skin, and yet we can feel its warmth. We know we can take that within and feel and lean on that as a feeling that God is present, that God is with us, whether we can see it or not. The Book of Freedom by Paul Selig goes on to say that the divine as what you are, the manifest self, the embodiment of an idea turned a form of God, knows what we are, not afraid of change or love, and that the Christ has come as each one of us. And that's such a beautiful thought for me, is that each one of us is the Christ, maybe covered up with a little mud here and there that we're all working on washing off, so that our light shows and shines out as brilliantly as an unencumbered sun. We must trust ourselves to know that all the requirements that we need, just like Joe was telling us, is present. I've heard that before, where someone was down to their last dollar, and yet there was a check waiting for them in the mail once they surrendered, and all they had to do was go out and open the box. So trust that we are divine as what we are. As we recognize this life, we live in ways, we light up our streets so that we can gain the next bit of understanding and take the next step up into who we are as divine beings. We are all prodigal sons, I believe. We went out into the world as we chose to go out into the world with a fearful small self, and that we must make it back. Not that if there's any such thing as distance, that we must travel except within our own minds and our own thinking, so that we can claim our true identity. We are made in the likeness and an image of all that is, and our inheritance is absolutely guaranteed. We would not be here if that were the case. In truth, I've struggled with my disbelief. I've heard that prayer and treatment works, but I'm also a doubting Thomas. I don't believe it, even when it's written. I'm holding it in my hands and I'm on my way to the bank, because my little self says, okay, well, what's going to happen now? When's the next shoe going to fall? So originally, when I saw the movie, What the Bleep Do I Know? The movie asked the audience, how far down the rabbit hole are you willing to go? And I was much more courageous back then. And I said, I wanted to go all the way. Well, I sort of feel like I'm in that room with the little door, and there's a bottle that says drink me and another one that says eat me. And my hand's on the doorknob, but I have to tell you that I have some anticipation and a little bit of fear about which bottle I should drink first. So I know that I'm not the first person in our group that is having a feeling of free falling after COVID. Many of us have relocated as a result of fires and life changes and whatnot. But it reminded me of a time And Spirit is always ready and willing to share a little metaphor in my head that really speaks to me personally. But when I was 21 years old, I was on my dad's sailboat in Key West. And we had taken the boat out to, which was 70 miles west of Key West, to a place where there was an old prison where Samuel Mudd, Dr. Samuel Mudd, who had treated, what's his name's broken leg after shooting Lincoln. Can't remember his name at the moment. John Wilkes Booth's leg. And so we went out and hung out for a while, but we were on our way back to Key West. And all of a sudden there were about 6 dolphins escorting our boat. And I told Dad, there are sailors' tales, and I know Dave knows these, that if the dolphins are traveling with your boat, that there's a storm coming up and that they're preparing you for it. They're trying to warn you of the of the storm coming. And of course, my dad did not, I told him that, and he poo-pooed it, and stuff. And so there's such thing as a squall line, and maybe many of you know what they are, but it's a small, nasty little storm in a line, travels very, very quickly. And if you're in the way, you're going to have some bumpy water at when it hits. So for whatever reason, my dad did not prepare for it, meaning he did not pull down the mainsail. This was a sloop. So it had one giant sail that did most of the work. It was 724 square feet. And he left it up. So all of a sudden we have hurricane force winds, lightning, thunder, rain, and the seas picked up all of a sudden. And there was a great snap. And I watched that mainsail be torn into 1-inch strips all the way down. Excuse me a second. And we were so very fortunate that it just tore the mainsail, because it could have ripped the mast out of the boat and sank us and left us out there in the middle of the ocean. But I knew inside of myself that that boat was seaworthy, that the Avoir was about 75 to 80 years old at the time, and that she was solid as a rock, and that she would get us back to safety. Well, we got back to, and I also believe that my dad had an opportunity, that sometimes things happen for us. And I think that this was an opportunity for him to, this man, I swear, excuse me. I'm going to just turn this off. Sorry. That we have opportunities to take a look, or an opportunity to heal something that's within ourselves that is brought on by a situation outside of ourselves, because we can't seem to reach it any other way. I know that's happened for me. And so unfortunately, however, it scared him so bad, that event, that when we got back to shore, when we got back to Key West, he stepped off that boat and he put sailing behind him once and for all. So, but I knew inside of myself that when it all comes down to the bottom, that my small self can imagine that things are horrible, and that, I'm going to be annihilated, and that my fears all come up at 100%, that there is my higher self deep within myself, who has a very loud voice, is able to demonstrate to me that that is just a lie. And I believe that sometimes we're caught up in hearing old images of things that were told to us. Perhaps we learned in Sunday school, perhaps we learned through the spiritual beliefs of our families, our relatives and whatnot. And it turns out for us that that did not work for us, that we needed a stronger, more loving, redesigned God for ourselves. And that's what I did. I walked away from my family in order to listen to the still small voice within. And I've never looked back. I'm so very grateful for that. So when we think about Ernest Holmes' teachings, and sometimes I am absolutely gobsmacked by how much I have to learn. Ernest Holmes' work is finally starting to make sense to me. That changing my thinking, changing my life, not only contributes to my life being better, but it changes the whole planet's, because we are one together. That we can trust the love and the wisdom that has come down through the ages, that's everywhere present. It's just as present as the air we breathe and the night sky that's overhead. So whatever challenges that you face, know with us all that you will rise to the occasion, that there is a voice within you. There is the being without, within, and through that is there for us because we are a part of it, because we are lovable, because we are us, that it will work out. If you can just not look at the potentials or not look at what could be, not let a nightmare come over you, and just be present in the moment with your state of gratitude, you'll find why it had to be the way that it did. You'll see that all of a sudden the solutions will be in the mailbox. I know I have a long road to go, but I also know that this information flows out of my hand into the paper. And I know that my oldest cat, Mama Luna, was sitting with me this morning, purring, confirming her love and willingness to share her life with me. And I have so very much to be grateful for all of you. And that you're willing to share your amazing, loving selves with me and your friends as my friends, and your strength and courage as we walk through this understanding of what our divinity is, and bringing the world along with us as we travel this beautiful river of light. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you most of all for sharing your journey with us. That was, I could feel it and I could see it. And it was very, very in the moment.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to ask everybody to join us in the offertory. Divine love flowing through me blesses and increases all that I give and all that I receive. And in the chat box is where you can send your donations. It's to PLC PO Box 2683, Oakhurst, California. Or you can donate by PayPal. There's a donate now button tab that's shown on your weekly iFocus. And but most of all, we just really appreciate your donations, your tithes, because it's a blessing to us. And this blessing, of course, is always thrice blessed back to you. It's the circle of prosperity. And because of your generosity, we can pay the mortgage, which is always nice. But as we give, that puts this, the law of attraction says that it goes out through our energy field and attracts back to us. So the blessings given, blessings received. And we just thank you with all our heart. Announcements. Well, we have something exciting that's coming up, and I just put it in the chat box. A new class begins this Sunday. Luana, our own LJ, is going to be giving a class which will utilize the principles and process of true prosperity, speaking of prosperity, as brought to us by Eric Butterworth in his classic book, Spiritual Economics. So you can purchase this book at the vendor of your choice. And no worries if it doesn't come by this Sunday. It's a 1-unit course, and it will be $90. And for registration, you can, or for information, you can email LJ, and that email address is in the chat box if you don't already have it, or you don't want to go and find it in the iFocus. And LJ, is there anything that you would like to, in addition, you would like to say about the class?
I just wanted to let you know that if you're interested and you haven't emailed me yet, there's still time. It is going to be at 11:30 today. And I will send out the Zoom link for the meeting about 15 minutes before we start. So you can count on seeing that at about 11:15. If you're interested at all, don't worry if you don't have the registration form into me or all those details. Just give me your email and I'll get the Zoom link to you and we'll take care of logistics later. I started the book myself and I'm going, oh my gosh, it is just loaded with so much resonance and truth and uplift and flow. And oh, it's just, I'm just, what is it, gobsmacked? I just love that. I am on this one. So if you are interested in Spiritual Economics by Eric Butterworth or Creative Prosperity, which is actually the real name, I kind of fudged on the other one, of the class, please join in. It'd be wonderful to have you. Great discussions always occur.
Are there any other announcements? Okay, Stacy.
So I mentioned about a month ago that I'm a member of an anti-racist book club that Susan Madden runs for us. And we've started a new book. It's called The Hotel on the Corner of Bitter and Sweet. And this particular book is a lot lighter than the other ones that we've been doing lately. It's more of a novel, and it talks about a wartime era of Chinese-Japanese variation on Romeo and Juliet, but it's going to expose for us what it was like to be Asian during the time of the Second World War, where the Japanese were put into internment camps. And yet the story is told from the point of view of a Chinese person who suffered from the visible similarities. And so it's so far it's just really sweet and wonderful, and I think it's going to be a great book. I will put the details in the chat and you can contact me if you'd like to join us. And we are, believe, going to meet on the third Monday in May to discuss the book.
Oh, great, thank you. Okay, and there was another hand raised. Laura.
I just want to let you know that every year, apparently, we have to do this test on our backflow mechanism for the water. And I just want to let you know, we got it done and we passed with no issues whatsoever. So previously, the water company, the old water company would just do that and charge us a fee. But now they've turned around and made it our own responsibility to do that, which I kind of panicked about at first, but it was really no big deal. That's what I do. I panic at first and then I find out it was really no big deal. And then but anyway, we passed and it's all good. And so we're good for a whole year. We got to do it every year as part of a state law that we have to do. So just letting you know about that.
Thank you, Laura. And most of all, I thank you for consciousness because, that is such, the water is such a metaphor for flow. Mm-hmm. And the fact that the water flow is perfect for at least another year. We know it's beyond that for PLC. Yay, yay, yay.
That was good.
So thank you. Yes. Anybody else have any? Oh, Joyce.
Hi there. I guess I just want to acknowledge, I just want to say a word or two of kind of my state, and that PLC is in a bit of transition. And I want to thank, I know that Angie and our beloved Angie and Stella have moved, and Angie has stepped off the board, as well as Jenny and others that have been on the board from the beginning. And I want to express my gratitude and appreciation for all that you have given to PLC over the years, and love seeing you and hope that, I know we can count on you as we go forward. And I'd also like to really reach out to the new board. I know there's new people on the board. Laura, our new president, Michelle, Marianne, and Amy, who have all stepped up during this transition time. So I'm very grateful. And of course, to our beloved pastor, Sandy, thank you for being here. I have faith. Jenny's talking about change and having faith that we are going to move forward in a good way. So thank you.
And thank you for that. It's all, Thanksgiving, gratitude, there's grace at the bottom of that. Gracias, grace, yes. And thank you for bringing forth grace, Joyce. Thank you. Any other announcements? Well, I do want to announce that our practitioner of the day is Joe Bull. So if you would like any practitioner work, please get hold of him, or you can put something in the chat box directed towards Joel if you would like some directed prayer work. Or you can get a hold of any of the practitioners or ministers at PLC. They are always an honor to do practitioner work. And Sandy, would you close out our service today, please, with our closing treatment?
Do the prayer protection first, please.
Oh, yes. Oh, I apologize. It was on the other sheet. Let's do the prayer of protection. And please do it with me. The light of God surrounds me. The love of God enfolds me. The power of God protects me. The presence of God watches over me. The energy of God is me. Wherever I am, God is, and all is well. God is, God is, God is. And Sandy, could you close out our service today, please?
As we all go forth this week, take this feeling of protection with you. Take it like a blanket and wrap it all around you, knowing that you are divinely protected. You are divinely loved and inspired. Know that your journey is fruitful and important. Know that you make a difference. For in these knowings, the world changes. The world becomes more. And each of us adds to that, helping this moreness grow, this evolution happening, this walk that becomes such divine grace. I know and accept for each and every one of us that we are imbued and enhanced with this, that the world is this wonderful, glorious place, that we are God in action and we make a difference. And I say, go forth and spread this feeling, spread this love, spread the grace. For the world needs us. The world needs us. And we answer that call from wherever we live, however we do it. Our prayers are heard, our thoughts are heard, our feelings are heard, and the difference is made and accepted. And I give such glorious thanks for that which is ours. And say with me, please, so it is.
So it is.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great week.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, like all the waving hands. Wave, Angie. There you go. Oh, wonderful music today, boys. It was really great. I liked the call and answer. I hope you do that again.
That was really cool.
It was. It was lovely. It was lovely.
It was really nice. I liked it too.
Mhm.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.